Welcome back to the Unbiased Opinion, where everyone's opinion is biased except ours. This is, I believe, our 15th episode, and today we're going to be discussing two movies that I guess you could say saved the movie theater business.
It's
The
not worth
fir-
saving, but
well, yeah, we can. That's another discussion. But the first movie we're going to talk about is the highest-grossing movie of 2021, Spider-Man: No Way Home. First off, I'm Colin.
I'm Craig.
And I'm Peter 4.
Oh God. Well, I saw the movie in theaters. I'm ashamed to say, because of the rumors that were circling around it. I could care less about Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but uh, for those few minutes that Toby was in it, I had to see it.
I mean, could you even say like the rumors? I mean, towards the end, it got painfully obvious that both the Spider-Men were going to be in the movie.
Oh yeah, but should we
Like,
talk about what we think about the movie first? Let's do that. I thought it wasn't that good, and I seem to be in the a minority on that. I think it wasn't really that well written. It took the same problems of Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2, in that you have too many villains. But this movie is just a mess. This is not Peter Parker again for different reasons. He's not Iron Lad. He's just incompetent man. You know, it was nice to see Toby. I didn't really care for Andrew, but Toby's not in the movie for that long at all, and it's not worth to pay an admission ticket to see Toby for 10 minutes. That's all I have to say.
I guess my quick thoughts. You can clearly tell this movie really isn't the movie. They had like plot points they wanted to hit, and they hit them, but that's why the movie's kind of a mess. Like they had to hit the plot point of getting the Spider-Man to team up, Spider-Man fighting the Sinister Six, and having a way to write Spider-Man out of the MCU in case this is the last Spider-Man movie with the Sony crossover. So that's why I feel like it's such a mess. It hit these, key plot points and it hit them, but it the movie suffered for it.
Yeah, I mean, the dialogue, we'll get into, specific things, but I agree, like, the movie was a mess. When I look at this movie, um, I compare it very much to Endgame and how it was just a complete nostalgic tickle fest. They're just trying to, like, write a movie just so you can have those, oh, I remember that moment, then you have, the big fight scenes, whatever, but it really was not well written at all. The dialogue was cringy and something out of like a Saturday morning cartoon at best. But overall, it just felt like those. It felt very much like Endgame, where they're just trying to like get you to those moments of like, oh, like it's like the South Park member berries, like, oh, I remember that, and it was, it was a struggle to get through the movie at times because I really like you said, Toby wasn't in it enough for me to really even appreciate it. And even some of his dialogue too was bad, was just bad. So, but overall I didn't like it.
Let's start with some positives. Craig, do you have any positives that you want to say before we
Well,
look
I'd
into
rather
the
say it
movie?
after we cover the basic plot.
Oh, well, since you're talking, how about you give us the basic plot then?
Okay, so this takes place right after Far From Home, where Spider-Man's identity got revealed to the world. The feds put him in jail, but then he gets released immediately because, we can't actually have consequences, or that's not what the movie's about. Then, I guess his identity's revealed to the world, his life is suffering, but not really. Or it doesn't really make sense why it's suffering. And he feels bad, so he goes to Doctor Strange, makes a deal with the devil, and the spell goes wrong. Other villains from other universes start pouring in, and then he thinks he's like this ultra good person, has to save everybody, even though most of them are gonna die anyway. And then they try to save them, shenanigans happen. They meet teams with the other Spider-Man, and then they end up saving the day. They work together as a team, and at the end of the movie, everyone forgets that he's Spider-Man. Yay.
I think the dumbest thing the movie does and this is so frustrating, is that they want to have Peter try to help these villains, even though he doesn't know them. And when Doctor Strange says it's like Spider-Man kills them, he doesn't. They all kill themselves in one way or another, except Electro.
I
I
think
think
Doctor Strange's exact words were they die fighting their Spider-Man. I don't think he says they kill them, but they die fighting their Spider-Man, which, leaves it very vague, you know?
yeah. I just don't know why he's like, oh, I gotta help them. It's like, no, they're bad guys. Why do you care so much? I know they're trying to connect it to the Aunt May thing. Like, doesn't she volunteers at a homeless shelter, or, something along those lines. And it's just not a valid enough reason to mess up everything, mess up for the whole story to get out of hand. That to me was probably the most frustrating thing of the movie that I just I couldn't forgive it for. I couldn't forgive that.
Obviously, like, especially since like the previous movie where he was all about, I don't care, I don't need to help people, I just want to go on my European vacation, have fun with my friends. Now he's like, a complete 180 where it's the exact opposite. I have to help everybody, even though he doesn't owe these people anything. They're really essentially not his problem, but everyone like even at me, it's like you have to help him, you have to help him, but it's like it's not really your problem. Like again, you don't know these people. You could say, well, they're bad guys, they could use help, sure, but it's not your universe. It's not your problem.
It's not a good enough reason to jeopardize anything or everything for that.
Also, too, like with the villains, why did Sandman and Doc Ock why did they start off bad? Because Doc Ock ended on a good note. He redeems himself by sacrificing his life to pull in like the mini sun into the river. And Sandman and Toby ended on the understanding like he's not really Sandman's committing these crimes, but he's doing it with like a good with like a good intention for his daughter. He's not really like a true bad guy like Green Goblin. So I didn't get why when Doc Ock just shows up on the bridge, he's like, "Hello, Peter." First off, like the Peter he fought didn't have an iron suit, so but he, and then he starts off with the power of the sun in my hands. Like, all right, you got to get that out of the way. But
Yeah,
why does
that
he
was pretty
immediately?
rough.
Yeah, like why is he automatically bad when he ended on a good note? Like
Yeah,
if they're getting
again,
pulled
it's
in right,
Well,
if they're
there is
getting
no
pulled,
reason. They just need to fight.
well, that's what I'm saying.
yeah,
Like, I
like
feel like a checklist. They has to fight the Sinister Six, so he has to fight Doc Ock. He's got to fight all these people.
yeah, it was just
Although it's
that,
Sandman,
that
I mean, he was never really a bad guy per se. That's probably the one of the few positives I have where
He just kind
he,
of he avoided everybody.
but
yeah,
but
he
the
didn't
thing,
really
but
fight. He protected Peter.
Yeah.
Or
but that's the thing too of like with Sandman of like when Green Goblin ultimately convinces the rest of them to like turn. Like, why did Sandman do that? Because he's just trying to get back. He literally said the only reason he's working with them is just to get back to his daughter. So, like, why would he compromise that?
I think another thing, if I with the movie that I could just not forgive it for is that at any point they had that magical box that if they press it, it undoes everything. At any point in the movie, they could have done that. So that just takes away any kind of stakes. Even if they mess up even more, it doesn't matter. They'll go back home no matter what. And the fact that some people overlook that is just mind-boggling to me. Because if that was
no,
any other movie that did not have Toby or had that much nostalgia in it, everyone would have ripped it apart. There
looking
are
at the
no
Disney brand.
there are no stakes in this movie at all.
Also, I'm glad you pointed out because that was another thing that annoyed me was they still they couldn't leave Stark out of the movie. They had to have a piece of him in it because when he goes to cure Doc Ock, like the first, like, oh, we'll figure out his mechanism why it's not working right. Like he presses that one, he pulls like this like rag. Oh, it's just like some dirty thing. And it's like a Stark. I forget what the name of it was, but it can like examine any machine, analyze it, come up with like a product for it. Like a cure for it. And I was like, oh my
It's
god,
something insanely unreal.
they really can't let Stark just die. They can't pull Spider-Man away from him completely. Like that was just like a big oh god. Like of course he's in trouble. Stark still is there to bail him out somehow. I thought we killed Stark off and we're now trying to get Spider-Man to be his own person. But nope, we can't let that go.
Of course not.
And the cringiest line in the movie, I just want to say, like it really made me just like I almost just stopped watching altogether was when they're in the in Happy's apartment, and Aunt May goes to offer Doc Ock like a glass of water because he's like, he still is like tied up with the tentacle, and she goes, fresh water or salt water, and he's like, what? And she's like, because you're an octopus.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think like, and even in the Raimi movies, he never went by that name. Like that was
I,
his
I
newspaper
was like,
name.
did they like, did they just like that scene? I was expecting them to put a laugh track in because that was so horrible.
it's like something you expect on a Nickelodeon show for kids.
But that's what I meant. Like some of the dialogue was just like it was like cringy Saturday morning cartoon dialogue, especially like when the Peters are talking with each other, and also like Ned and
I could not
Ed.
stand those two, Ned and MJ. They were insufferable. I just wanted them to die.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like like one piece of dialogue that really like annoyed me was because it reminded me of like from Star Trek Discovery where when Spider-Man's fighting Doctor Strange in the mirror dimension and he ends up like using the web to time up. It's like, yeah, well, I'm using the power of math, and like all like I don't know, Doctor Strange gets tied up or something. I was like, oh my God, because like, there's a line in Star Trek Discovery where the fat girl goes, "This is the power of math, people." And it's like the cringiest thing, and they say it in this movie. It's like, could you not do that? It's awful to listen to.
And also too was like, could you not rip off Uncle Ben's death anymore? Like Aunt May has to deliver that line, right? Like, well, I mean, I guess
The point was
Uncle Ben.
that like before someone dies or something, they say that to him.
Uh,
And that was more or less the point. It wasn't to rip off the death, but she
But the
just
thing
said
is,
it
the shit
out of
already
nowhere.
happened.
She
Yeah.
just it's like she was prepared to say that speech.
Yeah, I mean, I will say like Uncle Ben's was like he said it and then the robbery happens later, but like it was just like they had to like it was almost they forced the line in.
Oh, they
So it was like, oh wait,
100% they
she's
100%
about to
did.
die. All right, we got to throw this in. We got to throw in the motivation. Like they forgot to add that part of the story.
Well, part of the problem too is that we were under the assumption that this kind of already happened, right? Like Uncle Ben's already dead. He's already been given the speech. Like this should have already happened. Why is this the first time that he's hearing it? Like this should already be his motivation. He should have already heard this, but for some reason, this universe, like Uncle Ben, doesn't
No, yeah,
exist.
he's just
And also
non-existent.
and also too like I felt like in terms of like actual like that if that line would have actually had more like weight to it. I feel like if it came from Toby, at the end, especially when he's trying to kill um Green Goblin, he's angry, and then Toby can say that line like, you got to control your emotions because you can't let this take over you, like vengeance and stuff, and corrupt you. With great power comes, he could say it in that way. Like it would be more impactful actually coming from like Toby if you want to do the nostalgia train, but no, we have to throw that in because we can't have an original idea, God forbid.
Okay, gotta hit the checklist. Yeah, like I don't know. This Spider-Man just doesn't feel like Spider-Man. Like everything's just all wrong.
And also like Lizard felt so shoehorned in. Most of the time he's just like in a vehicle while like the Sinister Six are all talking.
Well,
He's
because
just like
they
there.
didn't know what to do with him,
Yeah,
and
but that was the
same with
worst thing.
Sandman too. Like
Yeah.
he's just full CGI. Like was the guy not on set when they were filming it? Could he
No, he
not be on
wasn't.
set at all? He wasn't.
No, they said no, I'm messing up. Sandman and Lizard were not on set. They just did voices and like they reused footage from like the old movies when they got cured. Because like the Sandman shot was like one to one.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like,
And I know the lizard one too. But like Sandman, the lizard, I can understand if he's not on set. He's full CGI. But isn't it more work and more expensive to have CGI shots of a guy instead of just using the guy? They could
well,
have
'cause
just
I feel like
had him
with
on set.
Sandman, they'd have to de-age him, but I don't think it matters.
Oh, it was just so weird though using full CGI and Electro too. Oh my god, he was
He
pretty
was
bad
annoying.
too. Yeah.
He was so annoying. Every line was talking about, oh, like the one part he's like looking out the window of the apartment and he's just like, oh, that power. Like every line was about power. I was like, all right, you could say something else, dude. We get it. You want to be powerful.
And I guess they wanted to avoid him being like how he was in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 but what you get is such a different person that it seems like it's a completely different character. You
I
know?
mean, it essentially is. I mean,
Yeah, he's confident. He talks like Jamie Foxx. He doesn't sound like anything how he did in the movie. I think that's just Jamie Foxx. He just showed up on set. He's not even playing a character. He's just playing himself. Like honestly.
he's not playing Max anymore. He goes by Jamie. He
Yeah.
changed his name. I'm Jamie now.
Now I'm a supervillain.
He's something of an actor himself.
Oh,
Oh
that was the thing too.
God.
Like all these like callback lines they had, trying to think we'd like laugh and clap, and like ends up like coming off as cringe. Like, I'm something of a scientist myself. Like, don't bring memes into the movie. Like, it became a meme. Like that's like an innocent line in the first movie. That's not supposed to be a meme. Now you're saying it to call back to the meme. Like it's not. It doesn't work.
Same with the power of the sun. Like his first lines for Doc Ock as soon as he comes back is, "Where is it? The palm, the power of the sun was just in the palm of my hands." And I was like, "Oh my God."
Or like when Peter's like, "Oh, my back hurts," because in Spider-Man 2 his back hurt.
Yeah.
Like we get it.
And
And
then
then to
Not
really
clever.
drive it home, Craig, he got stabbed in the back.
No, yeah.
you
I've
can't
been
forget.
stabbed before.
You cannot
They
forget
literally
the.
they literally stabbed it. They had to.
You cannot forget the 3 minute dialogue with all the Peters talking about it. Spider blood. I was laughing so hysterically in theaters when I saw that.
So again, that's a scene where you can actually like try to have them talk and like share their different experiences and like how different they all are. But no, they gotta make it turn into like a joke. Like, oh, you got spider stuff coming out of you? That's weird. It's like, okay, whatever. Just move past it. There's no reason to make jokes about it.
No, Craig. That how can we miss the great part where Andrew, dreamy Andrew Garfield is having a self pity party about how he's the lamest Spider-Man, and Toby had to be like, "Stop right
You're
there!
amazing.
You're
Yeah.
amazing." I was like,
Yeah, it's like stop.
oh, like, uh,
It's okay to be lame.
But it's like
uh,
again, it's like they're trying to like make up. Oh, you didn't get your third movie. He at least like will try to prop you up in
yeah,
this movie.
you are the worst Spider-Man.
I don't know,
Just
man.
admit it.
I don't know about that now. Because I will say the thing
It's a
about
race to the bottom.
yeah the thing about Toby
It's the
and
Three Stooges.
and Andrew is that they at least can command the screen when they're on it. Like they have that presence, I guess you can say. Even Andrew has a little bit, but Tom Holland got overshadowed by those two in his own movie. Like I don't know how I feel about Tom Holland as an actor. He has like one thing where he tries to be that he talks really fast and his voice is high pitched. Oh, wow, I'm super smart. Like I don't like that. I just don't like him as a. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I don't like him as an actor. I don't think he's that good. He's not a good Spider-Man, and that might be because of the screenwriters he was given to work with. But
Yeah,
I don't
I don't
think
think it's. I don't think he has much input, but I because in home, like in terms of like Civil War and Homecoming, his kitty quips were fine. He's 15. It was fine. You kind of had hopes for him, but especially after like his last two movies, I will agree, it just nosedived. Especially when they just can't brand, they can't like he just doesn't progress or like there's really no different direction for him as like a character.
Well, I'm saying because you can see this go back since the Amazing Spider-Man 2, like or the Amazing Spider-Man series, where that was trying to feel like a power fantasy, not a Spider. Like Spider-Man's supposed to be, tragic. Like you relate to him because he's got real problems. It's not supposed to be like I want, like Batman. People are like I want to be Batman because he got the cool gadgets and he's rich. I want to be Iron Man. You really don't want to be Spider-Man. Like he's poor, nothing goes his way. He's
he's
barely struggling.
miserable.
Yeah, like Spider-Man's supposed to be relatable, not a power fantasy. Like this Spider-Man's a power fantasy. He's friends with the Avengers. Nothing goes wrong. He's not really poor. Who cares if his uncle died? Who cares? He's got Uncle Tony now. Like there's not it's not that's why it's not really Spider-Man. That's why he always feels wrong when like you see him in a movie or the reception to him isn't as strong as the other Spider-Man because he's friends with Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange can cure all of his problems. I mean, it's not really
You
Spider-Man.
have a plot device that you can change any. You can save the day at any point.
That also felt forced at the end too. Like speaking of Doctor Strange, like when Spider Man's like, "Oh, make everyone forget Peter Parker exists," and like Doctor Strange, like they try to pass it off like Doctor Strange really cared for Spider Man, even though they only like really met once before. and it was like in passing. It wasn't really they're trying to stop Thanos, so they don't have time to develop a relationship. But like at the end, Strange is like tearing up, like all the people that love and care for you. We'd like he includes himself like we'd forget you. Well, I mean, I of all the people, Doctor Strange, I feel like would actually probably be the most be able to compartmentalize there and be like,
Say
I
like
understand,
callous.
kid. Yeah, he'd be like, I understand, kid. Like Stark would, you could see like Stark would be proud of you for making the sacrifice. But like now they're making him tear up, like he really cared for Spider Man, even though he was just pissed at him, like he was fighting him in the mirror dimension.
Like an angry father. But I want to go back a little further because the whole point of like the stupid spell going wrong is because they couldn't communicate with each other. It was like I want people to forget I'm Spider-Man, and then they have this like no communication where Doctor Strange's making a spell where like everyone's gonna forget, and it's like, wait a minute, everyone? Like you could have like talked it out like, okay, what exactly are you trying to accomplish? Like adults, they would, what are you trying to accomplish? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to accomplish? Then we'll work it out. It's like interrupting mid spell. I know that's stupid.
That's why I said he was just so incompetent in this movie.
Yeah,
Well,
they
everybody
also like
is.
yeah, I was gonna say even Doctor Strange, like they they really degraded him too.
Oh, how can we
Because like
forget one line too? I didn't mean to cut you off, but MJ says, I know a magic phrase
Oh
myself. It
God.
starts with please, something dumb like that.
And just like
And
sent to another dimension where he tortured her for 1,000 years.
but like
yeah,
but like with Doctor Strange, like why would he like he is all about doing like what keeps like especially now with the multiverse at stake,
He's
like
big picture.
yeah, like why in God's name, like with someone who like in it, like let's go back to Infinity War. Like he told Stark he was willing to let him and Peter die for the sake of the universe. Now this guy is you know willing to take this request by this like 17, 18-year-old kid that could put that has cataclysmic consequences across multiple universes, and he's gonna be like, okay, like realistically, Strange would be like, no, kid, you got to deal with your problems yourself. Like, I'm not gonna do this and put multiple universes at stake. And it's
Well, yeah, again,
just
again, it was the checklist we had to hit. Just again, that's why like the movie is just it's barely a movie. Some corporate checklist that was hit.
especially like we talked about earlier, the fan service and seeing it in theaters with all those howling chimps was it was unbearable. Not almost unbearable.
Non-stop
It
clapping
was
was
pretty
no.
bad, and I'm not one of those people. I guess you could say I get too mad when people are excited over a movie, but if it's every 5 minutes of someone clapping and shouting, you're just being obnoxious, and you should go home. Like the Daredevil thing when he shows up for like for a minute, and everyone's just like shouting, like, "Oh my God, it's Daredevil! Oh my God!" Uh,
Well,
oh,
even
the best was when, or the worst was when Andrew Garfield showed up, and I heard one person yell, "No way! No way!"
like you obviously knew, just to be obnoxious, like all the yelling.
Yeah, it. Uh, ugh,
well,
God.
you didn't know Daredevil was going to be in it because he's a really good lawyer.
Well, of
Like,
course, of course.
again, it's like it's cringy. Like how he gets something like Peter, I've got abilities too, and I'm trying to look out for people like us. Something a little more serious. But no, it's like, oh, I'm a really good lawyer. Like it's not even funny. It's like it's becoming really cringy.
Yeah, it was,
Like
and
again,
also
like
too, like with J. Jonah Jameson, that new
oh
adaptation.
my God, that's awful.
That was bad, but also too, like that felt very Civil Warish, like in the sense, like after Aunt May dies, and now the cops are outside, and and then he's on that big, and he sees the big billboard of J. Jonah Jameson, like doing like that 48 hours style of like, guys walking and talking into the camera, where he's like, "Do you see now? I don't know what more you have to see to believe. Everywhere Spider-Man goes, death, death and destruction follow him, and us civilians have to pick it up." And it's like, I mean, not really. It was like you only just figured out who Spider Man was, or only think he's a villain now because of some random video from Mysterio that was last movie, so I wouldn't like that too felt very forced. But like,
Well, part of it too is like they're trying to make it like J. Jonah Jameson like some Alex Jones knockoff, and it doesn't work because it's not anywhere close to the same. Like J. Jonah Jameson's supposed to be like a bit of a sleazy news guy, but he's not supposed to be like you know some conspiracy theorist or whatever. Because like there was they dedicated like a little clip in the movie where like I think one of the things Alex Jones known for is some like super male vitality pills or something. Like J. Jonah Jameson's selling the same thing. Like I think it'd be lost on most people, but like it's just stupid. Like why even include that in the movie? You're just gonna like make yourself look stupid 10 years down the road. Because no one's gonna get your reference, and then people are gonna think like, why would you even include that? Like that's not funny.
Well, you see, Craig, you just don't understand.
Like, I do understand. Like it's just stupid. It's not a good comparison. Like, and again, also too, like J. Jonah Jameson's detached from Spider-Man. Like he's supposed to be working for him, but he hates Spider-Man, but he kind of likes Peter. But of course, that can't be in the movie because they make him some weird Alex Jones knockoff.
and also too, it just doesn't work because like they didn't establish this J. Jonah Jameson like hating Spider Man in any movie prior until the end of Far From Home. Like they threw that in the last like 30 seconds, but it would have been something if they built it up over the movies of like he was always on Spider-Man's case. He thinks he's a he thinks he's a villain. Yeah, you build it up over time, and then it would pay off in this movie. Like, see, I've been right all along. But they throw it in the last 30 seconds of the last movie, and then now it's like, you see, I was right. Like that was so forced.
Well,
Like
again, because they're trying to represent J. Jonah Jameson. They're trying to have I guess a little of a jab at Alex Jones, even though like I don't think anybody's made a joke about him in the past like 3 years.
Well, he's just a joke himself. You don't need to make fun of him.
But again, these people are like I don't know, they're so stupid. And, they've got their trying to get their jabs in, even though no one cares. It's just gonna date yourself and make yourself look stupid.
And also, like, why would anyone think Spider Man's a villain? Just you take Mysterio's word on it. Like, no one knew who Mysterio really was.
Well, that too. But I mean, again, that's the thing. Like we said before, like the fallout from the previous movie just kind of gets swept under the rug. I mean, they get pulled in by the feds and they get let go immediately, like after like 2 minutes. At that point, it's like why even include in the movie?
Like, also too, like Spider Man, like he knows like a Nick Fury and all these higher up people. Like, they're trying to make his struggle like they can't get into MIT. Like, I'm pretty sure if Spider Man told Happy had connections, I could probably just override that and get them in.
Well, I call
But
Pepper.
yeah. But we have to have these not these 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 problems that again he can easily have solved because he knows Stark.
So that was the thing too, like the whole motivation is that he and his friends couldn't get into school, which I have a hard time believing. I mean, most of these heroes are like deified. Spider-Man's associated with these heroes. Like, I don't really think most schools would not accept them.
Well, you
Like, I don't
see,
know,
it's
doesn't really sound
because they think he's a murderer, Craig.
so. I mean, all the charges got dropped because Daredevil was such a good lawyer, so charges were dropped.
And he
Yeah,
caught a
that's a
baseball without looking.
that, it was a brick.
That was a brick.
Yeah, if you're gonna rip on the movie, at least know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Alex Jones over here.
Excuse me.
it's
But
fake
but that's
news.
another thing too. It's like the charges got dropped, so why would people still keep hating him? Like most people just move on with their lives.
Yeah, most people have a short memory these days. They wouldn't remember like in 2 or 3 months.
Well, now they're definitely not going to remember him. Uh,
Yeah, I guess let's talk about the ending, where everyone forgets him. And Craig, as you mentioned, it felt very like corporate-y because they're like, oh, this is the end of our contract with Spider-Man, possibly. Uh, let's just have him erased so no one remembers him at all. No one can bring him up in the next movie.
Yeah, it's an easy out, so no one. So if he's never mentioned again, that's why.
Yeah, that does seem like a Sony thing to do. They would. They're kind of scummy like that. They would do something, you know. And did they renew the contract like in or for one more movie like in 2019, right? For No Way Home, right?
Yeah, because I think they wanted to finish the trilogy, and I think they're moving ahead with a fourth one, but obviously they wanted to make sure they had their out. So I wonder, like, if they were to make a fourth one, would they still like keep writing it out for every movie? So if the contract ends, they can just be like, okay, well, that's why it doesn't exist anymore.
Well, are they going to bring in Ned and MJ for the fourth one?
I can't imagine. I mean, good riddance and everything, but I can't imagine they would.
Yeah, they were pretty bad.
Well,
I
don't
guess one
forget
thing that the movie completely missed on was the interactions with the past Peters with their own villains. It's
Yeah,
absolutely inexcusable that you have like only two lines with Toby and Doc Ock. That's it.
Toby doesn't
I,
say anything to the Goblin.
yeah. Like they should have had
or
a
even
nice
really like
tender
Sandman.
moment. Yeah, they should have had nice tender moments with these. If you wanted to sell the nostalgia, they should have done that. You know, it wouldn't have suckered me at all, but it would have been nice to see older Peter talk more with Doc Ock because they made amends at the end, or even him talking to the Green Goblin. That would have been
Yeah.
nice to see, and it's just like Episode 7 with Star Wars, where you had this opportunity and you just completely messed it up because you're never going to be able to
Yeah,
do it again, probably, because everyone's old and you completely whiffed it.
because
Yeah,
like
like
especially Toby and Doc Ock, like they had like what 40 seconds together. I mean, that's nothing.
Not even.
I mean, it was probably my favorite scene in the movie, but like it was like you wish they could have done more.
No, instead we got to see Wacky Ben, or not Ben, Wacky Ned and MJ goofing around, opening up portals or whatever they were doing.
I want to get to them later, but like,
especially they miss those moments, especially too, like when the Peters are like, "Oh, I'll take care of this one," or like, I've dealt with this one." Like they kind of made it a point in their dialogue, like they had connections to all these villains, like personally. So like the dialogue was kind of pointing there, but and also too like especially like Garfield, he didn't really establish, he didn't have relationships with his villains. Like you're talking about Green Goblin is probably the most emotional villain for Peter too, especially thinking of like Harry and also too like all the problems that it caused between him and Harry after he basically took the blame for um Norman trying to kill him, and then ends up killing himself. Like it was so emotional for Toby, and they just completely glanced over it. And all
well, we
the
can't
Doc Ock
overshadow
too.
Tom's.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone's gonna forget him. He's a
Could you imagine
forgotten
if they
hero.
had the new Goblin in this?
Oh my god.
He would have completed the Sinister Six.
And I know a lot of people
I think that
also.
actor's canceled.
Is he?
I think so. I think he's another, pervert.
That's. Oh god. Is it. Who, Franco?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they were ever considering him, but
Oh, I thought you were talking about the one from Amazing
Amazing Spider-Man
Spider-Man 2.
2. Oh,
no, I didn't mean him. I meant yeah, Franco.
okay. Well, let's not talk about him again. But,
I don't think you would have needed him anyway since you have Norman.
what was I going to
I'm
say?
saying like,
Craig, you
sorry.
completely just threw me off my thought. Alright, someone else continue. I'll try to remember what I was about to say.
Well, I want to
Well,
pick up like
guys, also they brought back Venom.
yeah.
Now, we'll get to that later, but.
I just want to say because you mentioned like how they didn't have any of their tender moments. They give the most moments to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and Electro. Like they probably had the
Oh!
longest conversation together. That's what annoyed me the most.
And now I remember the dumb moment with him saving MJ, and then he gets all emotional because he's like, I did save Gwen, but I saved you. Uh,
It's a bit
ugh.
forced.
I thought that was completely dumb. I don't care if in theory it would make him feel good. In actuality, watching it, it was completely weird. Like, why would he? I don't know. It's just.
Well, again, it's just like overreaction to it. Like if he was like, you know, it's gotta be a little more subtle. Like you can't act like a cartoon character. You gotta be a little more subtle. Like I'll save her. Like something more subtle. Not like, oh, I'm about to break down because I saved this one person. Like it doesn't come off right.
Also, it felt like Garfield's like they completely made him less mature. Like he felt like so much more like a kid in this one than his other movies. Like Toby felt like he almost felt like the father. Like he was the oldest one in the group. He felt his age. Um, but like Garfield was like just as much as a kid as Holland was. Like especially when all three of them are interacting. Oh, I'm so lame. So how does it come out of you? Like him and Holland were like almost like both his like Toby's sons in this. Like he felt so immature.
Yeah, Toby was the only serious character in the movie. And besides like a couple little jokes here or there, but he was mostly just like straight faced. You know, he was. Everyone else was just goofing around, kind of like cracking jokes, but not Toby. He was the only
Yeah.
serious guy.
Yeah, he was the one that made sure that Holland wouldn't kill Green Goblin. Like he talked to him, he's like, "No, we cure them all." Like to make sure like even Green Goblin like he gets cured. And then he ends up saving Green Goblin too at the end. But Garfield was just I really don't know what he was in this movie. I don't know what
He's
most of the characters were.
that same cringe character from the Amazing Spider-Man
Like
2.
he felt like he did feel like a Disney like a kid's cartoon. Most of the dialogue was freshwater or saltwater. He's a person that had mechanical arms infused to the back of his neck. He's not an octopus person hybrid.
But again, I don't think he's ever been called Doc Ock personally. Like, that's also the kicker. It's not like he goes around saying, "I'm Doc Ock, I'm Doctor Octopus." Like he
The only
introduced himself as
reference to
Otto.
the only reference to him being called Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2 was J. Jonah Jameson coming up with the newspaper title.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like he
That
never
was
called himself that.
Craig said that
that was
earlier.
it.
Weren't you
Yeah.
listening?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
any more comments on the? Any more negativities or negative?
I want to bring up Ned real quick because
Yes,
on
please.
top of being insufferable, his bad jokes and all that stuff, like it kind of annoyed me how easy he made the portals. Because, in the first Doctor Strange, that was kind of a
Oh
big thing, him
yeah,
overcoming the first step to make the portal. And he's like, "Oh, my mom said, we were like magical or something, and then oh, I can make portals now."
yeah,
It kind of like ruins, Doctor Strange's like struggle in the first movie because this, bumbling idiot can do it so easily. I like
yeah.
that in
That
there.
was pretty
Well,
bad
we
too.
got to give them something to do.
I guess, but it's like you could make it a little more believable. But then again, the checklist they have to follow.
Always have side characters crack constant jokes and one-liners all the time.
And like MJ, like again, their just relationship is just so odd. Because like the first one, she basically like hates their guts. Second one, he is fawning over her for some reason. Now like this one, it feels like they act like they've been dating for like 3 years, but in reality they've only dated for like a week.
Well, the thing is too, I think in the second one she only liked Peter because he was Spider-Man. You know,
I mean,
wasn't that like
probably
the
that too, but
part of like why he felt so deflated when she actually showed interest in him was because she knew he was Spider-Man. And he was
honestly I
like,
don't
oh,
remember. I saw it once 3 years ago at this point.
yeah.
The point is, I think the relationship is garbage. Not
Well,
very convincing.
well, you think that because it is, you know, it's a matter
Well,
of
yeah, I mean,
fact.
we're unbiased here. It's a fact.
Also, too, at the end, just a side note, like when Doctor Strange was like, "It's pulling everyone in from their universe," is like, what other villains are coming in?
Did you see the Rhino
Hey, James
silhouette?
Franco, he's coming in.
Oh no,
Watch out.
The perverts are entering.
the real villain.
Oh no, the terrible Russian rhino.
Oh no, not Paul Giamatti.
I am the rhino.
Yeah, I was just like, who else are they pulling in from their universe? It made it seem like there was like an army waiting on the other side.
Just an army of James Francos.
Just an army of Paul Giamattis without the suits
Yeah, just him with like him being bald. And he had like that tattoo on his head.
Do you
and
have
a
like on
white
his neck
beater.
too?
Yeah, he had like tattoos everywhere.
Just a bunch of they're walking in. I am the rhino.
Should we talk about the quick Venom thing at the end? So now Venom's in the MCU, unfortunately.
I thought they sucked him out.
No, so he
The
was
symbiote stayed in.
yeah, the symbiote stayed in, but he got sucked out. But a piece of the
Right.
symbiote was left behind. So now we got that god awful Venom now in the MCU. So I guess
I've never seen either one, so
I saw the second Venom and wasn't good. You know, we're not going to go into details about it, but I just don't know what their obsession with Venom is, especially
well,
if you messed him up twice already. Are you gonna mess him up a third time? Like, you're going 3 for 3? You know?
Well, one of those Sony producers, Avi
It,
Arad,
yeah,
he's
terrible.
obsessed with Venom. He's been
He's
trying to get
terrible.
yeah, he's trying to get a Venom movie since like I think before the Raimi Spider-Man. Trying to get him in, like that's why he was involved in Spider-Man 3. He's obsessed with Venom. I don't
Well,
know
now
why. I
that
mean,
now that Peter, well, what they're gonna do probably in the fourth one is now that Peter has to find a new identity, he's gonna get the symbiote. That's gonna be his new identity.
You know, that would be funny if it wasn't true.
but how
And
did it
then
even work? Like, because in the Raimi one, how he hurt everyone around him, which is kind of what the symbiote does now. How's that going to work? No one knows him.
yeah, he's
I
gonna
don't know.
find a new identity. And then he's gonna look right at the camera and say, "We are Venom."
Oh, God, stop giving them ideas.
Oh, it's already done.
Should we talk about some positives then? You know, the segue.
I mean, I guess positive is uh Toby. I mean, obviously he's our boy.
Well,
It's
of
good to see him
course.
back. Even after 10, 15 years, it's good to see our boy back.
Yeah,
What
I
else?
agree. It was really nice to see Toby in the suit again, and that
It's all
little
nostalgia, but I'm okay with it.
yeah, that was fine. The little 40 seconds with him and Doc Ock, even though it felt criminally like
missed
it was
opportunity.
completely a missed opportunity. That what 20-30 seconds was nice. I wish there was more of that in the movie with Toby at least. I wish it was just another Toby movie. I could care less about Tom Holland. I wish for another Toby movie.
I do too.
Or Garfield.
And
No.
also, I did not mind the scene with Aunt May's death up until her getting hit by the whatever that the glider. Like him fighting Goblin, I didn't mind that much.
Like he's like, you have
The
enough powers to
apartment,
take it.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Well,
body
I
slamming
mean,
him.
I thought that was good. And then
yeah,
I didn't care as much when she got hit by the glider because I was thinking like they're not gonna kill her, are they? Like there's no way. The way when she got hit just looked like a cartoon.
But again, you can't really sympathize with her death because it's like comically stupid. Like you're gonna hit him with what? Like a I forgot what you had, like a pipe or something. Like you're not gonna hurt him.
and
Your
she
brother's
literally
just
pulled
running.
it like it was like hanging from the ceiling. She just pulled it off. I was like, "What the?"
Like again, these people like they go out of their ways to put themselves in harm's way and they die. And like I'm supposed to sympathize. Like no, you're not like an innocent bystander. I mean, I know you're Peter's the only person left in his life, like his mother, but at the same time, you're kind of doing it to yourself. Like I don't really feel as bad because you're being stupid. It sounds cruel, but it's like you really feel bad for somebody who like tries to get themselves killed, then succeeds.
It was like Uncle Ben in the Amazing Spider-Man, the first one, when the guy
Yeah,
drops the
like
gun and he like put like,
He
why
runs
would you
at
try to
him.
stop? Yeah, he's like, "Hey," and tries to like grab the gun. Like, you don't know that could be he has a
that could be
license
legal.
for it.
Yeah,
Maybe he's an undercover cop.
if you pass in judgments like that so quickly,
But
Uh,
they can't have an original idea. They can't stray from that formula, so they have to put that in there.
of
but I
course.
think for me, those are the only two positives that I can think of. A
I
lot of
had
people.
some more.
Oh, yeah, you go.
Well, it was not so much, I guess. It's just good that they didn't do this because, like, in movies, like we see, like when heroes come back, they're usually like torn down and like they're not really were a hero. They're actually pretty bad. These guys were still heroes. Toby, they said like I think he had the quick line, of course, because they couldn't dwell on it, but he said him and MJ worked everything out and they're happy together. Andrew not as happy, but I feel like that's kind of where you have to leave him at. So that I felt like was a positive. Like even like maintaining Sandman's kind of, redemption, how he wasn't really attacking people until the end for no reason. The fact that he was like trying to be a good guy, I felt I liked. Doc Ock when he was cured, he was a good guy.
Yeah, that was good.
Again, not trying to undo stuff from the previous movie. So again, the bare minimum of what they should do, but the fact they did it, I guess I'll say it's a positive because people can't do the bare minimum anymore these days.
Yeah,
I don't really minus like Toby's parts. I really don't have anything like positive or anything I like, want to applaud them for.
They're trying to be somewhat fair, but a lot
I
of bad.
think even though we talked about the ending feeling very corporatey, it could possibly be a step in the right direction with Spider-Man, where he's always miserable. It's a shame it took them 3 movies to maybe get it right at the very end. But I do like that it on paper it looks like he could be like actually Spider-Man without any help from Stark, without anyone holding his hand. It feels like it could be a step in the right direction, but then again, I had the same thought with after Homecoming. I was like, oh, they have to get that stuff out of the way, Stark and whatnot. But you know, I had that thought before. I'm probably gonna be wrong. Someone else is gonna hold his hand. I don't know, like Thor or something.
I mean, and
Well,
you
well,
probably are gonna be wrong.
the symbiote will do that for him now.
I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say you are gonna be wrong because Sony, for some reason, for every Spider-Man movie they've made with Marvel, they like to have their big name hero to kind of also draw the audience and let you know it's an MCU movie. Like we had Stark in the first one. I guess Nick Fury technically in the second one, even though I don't think he's as big of a draw. And Doctor Strange for this one. I
Was
don't
it
know who they're bringing out for the fourth one, but
is it
they're
gonna be
bringing someone
Wanda
in.
or something?
Oh God, no, Captain Marvel.
Oh Jesus! But yeah, like
Not to call you out, but you are gonna be wrong.
no, I probably am gonna be wrong. But let me have my naive thought, and let me just say that as of now, it looks like he's going to be on his own, and he's miserable, and I like that. As of now, I'm definitely going to be wrong, but I do like. I thought it was a step in the right direction.
He'll team up with the new Ant-Man
Oh Jesus!
because they're both insects.
They'll probably
Some
make
dumb
that
jokes there.
they'll kind of make that joke too. What are you, a Marvel writer?
I could be. I mean,
Daniel, any positives anymore? Or is that was it?
Nah, I enjoyed Toby. That was it.
And we're clearly in the minority here because I'm looking at the reviews. It has an 8.7 out of 10 on IMDb, and for reference, that's like almost the same rating as Infinity War. Actually, no, it's higher. It's higher than both Endgame and Infinity War. So this movie is rated one of the best superhero movies of all time. I think it's only behind The Dark Knight, and that is just ridiculous. I think, ugh,
you know, it's the sixth highest grossing movie of all time at the point of the recording.
yeah, it's 1.8 billion worldwide, 1.834 actually. It has
I
a
mean, no
nine.
modesty.
It has
It's
a
very impressive.
93% on Rotten Tomatoes and a
That's just
98% audience score.
enough nostalgia. That'll do it.
Not going to say those people are dumb, but if you're easily manipulated by nostalgia, you are a dumb person. So I guess let's move on to our next movie. Yeah,
Speak of nostalgia.
yes. Well, not really with this one. Um,
Well, kinda. I mean,
Godzilla vs Kong, which came out in almost a year ago as of this recording. This was the first hit of the pandemic, I guess you could say.
Well,
Growth 400.
the streaming at home is like this propelled.
Well, no, it also grossed $468 million worldwide. Um, Godzilla vs Kong. What are your thoughts about it, boys? I guess I could quickly start. I did not like this movie. I thought it was kind of bad. I have a lot of complaints, which we'll get into, but I did not like this movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. Um, again, like we're in the minority because this one is like the I guess the the best for most people on on the MonsterVerse movies to date, which I don't agree with at all. I will we all agree King of the Monsters is the best, and that one's usually the worst reviewed one. But this there's a lot of problems with the plot. Uh, but I we'll get into it. But I agree with you. I didn't like it.
Greg?
yeah, I'm just gonna repeat both what you're saying. It was easy, my least favorite. People say it's the best one and it grossed the most, but I would probably put this at the bottom
It
of the
actually did
MonsterVerse
not
movies.
gross the most.
Oh, people kept saying it did.
Kong Skull Island grossed the most.
Oh, well. Still, I would probably put it at the bottom of the MonsterVerse movies.
Yeah, I would too. I think it is the worst of the MonsterVerse.
And again, I don't want like I want to preface this by saying I'm not trying to be a contrarian. Like we're not trying to be contrarians. It's just I don't know what people think. I think they're very easy blinded by nostalgia.
I want to preface this too by I think we all agree that most people who claim to be like Godzilla or King Kong fans, like in the MonsterVerse sense, it's more Godzilla, I should say, because King Kong's a one note character. But with Godzilla, the people who claim to be fans and are reviewing these movies clearly, like when they're making their criticisms of these movies or praising it, they clearly haven't seen the entire franchise and like watch the older movies. As we'll get into like the plot and stuff and like with characters and human and monster, development. I just want to say like most of these people clearly like aren't like actual Godzilla fans. Like they picked up like I would say they're more like contemporary Marvel fans. Like they say they're Marvel fans, but they only became fans when they started watching the movies. They didn't enjoy the original material, but
And I guess we should also preface by saying, like, we're not saying King of the Monsters is a perfect movie in any way. It certainly has its issues, especially with the scripts and some of the characters. But with that movie, at least, it didn't upset me to the point with like its human characters did not annoy me nearly as much as the characters in this movie. And I think somehow the characters in King of the Monsters are better written than the characters in this movie.
Because like I was saying with
Yeah, what are you
King of
saying?
Monsters real quick, at least it felt like it could be a movie enjoyed by like your average movie audience and Godzilla fans. This one just felt like it's not really for anybody in a sense. Like you get like your action scenes and that's it. Like there's nothing to keep you watching. You just fast forward to the fights and that's it.
Yeah, probably Godzilla vs Kong's one of its biggest issues, aside from the script and characters and the story, is its pacing and how there's just these long stretches of Godzilla. First off, Godzilla's not really in the movie that much, and there's just these long stretches of monster set pieces, and it can really be a slog to sit through when you have these terrible people on screen for far too long. Like in King of the Monsters, at least every 10 to 15 minutes, there was a monster doing something. It would cut to, Rodan and Mothra and Ghidorah doing something. So that's what made that movie better paced. It was never too long on the humans. And like we said, they're not that good in King of the Monsters, but they're better than the idiots in this movie.
I'll say with the characters and plot in King of the Monsters versus this one, they were simple, but they actually were characters and a plot. It might have been simple, but like you're saying, it was well paced. It got to the point. Kind of, it's like what you expect in a Godzilla movie. This one, they weren't characters. They were just like bad plot devices to get you to the end fight, and there was really no plot. Like the plot made no sense whatsoever. At least in King of the Monsters, say what you want about. Listen, it's a Godzilla movie. There really can't be much of a plot if you have giant radioactive monsters fighting. But at least in King of the Monsters, the plot was simple, but it actually was a plot. This I don't even know what this really was. It was just all to get Godzilla and Kong face off on the big screen.
Yeah, and like we said, not. I mean, we already reviewed King of the Monsters like almost 3 years ago on this, and a lot of people just cannot forgive that movie for the character of Emma when she and her evil doing, and I agree that was bad, like with her as a character and her being crazy and all that. But I would take that over whatever nonsense is in Godzilla vs Kong, and this the lack of you know character motivations and how this movie is like it's like an anti King of the Monsters in a way, where they're like, all right, let's get rid of Kyle Chandler, let's relegate him to a cameo, let's focus it on a whole new cast instead. It felt very anti King of the Monsters.
And the one character that you bring back is the girl.
Yeah,
It's like,
and
and
she's
oh god,
worse. She's worse in this
Oh,
movie than in King of the Monsters.
that's another thing. Her, the conspiracy podcast guy, and
the
the
fat
kid,
friend, I don't know his name.
yeah,
Josh,
yeah, the kid from
Josh.
from Deadpool 2 or whatever. That was completely unnecessary. You could have literally cut them out of the movie and it wouldn't have changed a thing.
All right, before we get into negatives, let's talk about the plot real quick. I guess I could do this. Basically, Skull Island is a mess, and it's far too unstable for Kong to stay on it and whatever. But they can't have Kong come out because for some reason Godzilla just wants to kill him on sight, and they try to transport him. Godzilla intercepts him. They fight. Meanwhile, there's this whole underground conspiracy with Apex and their true intentions, and they're trying to make Godzilla look like a villain and whatnot. They fight at the end. Mecha Godzilla's shoehorned in for whatever dumb reason. Godzilla Kong go their separate ways. That is the plot in like a couple sentences, and it's not a good story, not a good movie at all.
Probably could have told the plot in even less sentences.
I probably could, honestly.
That just like right off the bat, like when the opening credits are showing Godzilla, like it was almost it was like a UFC tournament, and like Godzilla was just clearing the path of like the other Titans, like for some. They didn't even really explain it or show it. Like you think like if you want a monster movie with monster fights, why don't you at least show him beating up one of the other monsters and killing it? You know, but no, they just do that. They show that in the opening credits as almost like showing Godzilla's credentials beating all these other monsters versus Kong just beating the skull crawlers. They don't even really touch on it. And also too, like in the beginning, they obviously, Godzilla shows up in Florida at like one of those laboratories, just lays waste to it, and then they're like, "Oh, Godzilla, he can't be trusted. He attacked this one time." Like I think just right off the bat, if you showed Godzilla like actually attacking different cities, like having a montage of it, like he's done this like 5 times before, then it's a call for concern. But he like attacks this one laboratory one time in like a 5 year hiatus, and now he's a villain. Like it
And
just
isn't it
like
like ridiculous? Like only 5 people died or something. Like it
It was
was a
like it
really
was
low
like
number.
8, and all these things were just getting exploded. It just looked like a couple hundred people died, but then in the next scene, it had the report and it said like 8 people, dozens injured. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's like the Avengers when like this showed like the death count. It's like terribly inaccurate. You see like buildings collapse and oh yeah, 2 people died in that.
but yeah,
Sorry,
that
continue.
just there's no like my like right off the bat, like there's no development for that. Like they could have like taken time. Like this also like talking about like pacing, like not to keep comparing it to King of the Monsters, but like there was no pacing in this movie. Like it felt like they rushed to get this in under 2 hours, like at 2 hours.
Well, it
For
feels
some
like that
reason, like
because they did.
no, that's what I mean. Like they cut out so much stuff that actually could have made this a much better movie in terms of like plot development and stuff, and like seeing how they got to this point. But it's like Godzilla's a villain for really no reason. Like okay, now we gotta go get Kong.
Well, this is directed by Adam Wingard, who is a Billy Goated Chinned weirdo who likes to have his movies under 2 hours for whatever dumb reason. Like, you don't have to have your movies be 2 hours. Like, if you have a movie over 2 hours, it's not automatically make that good. I get that. I understand that. But if you have a movie that is clearly not a final, like, it's completely or clearly condensed of what it's supposed to be, it's like, I don't know why he shortened it so much to the point of what it is now, because the final product feels like it's missing so much. I don't know
Yeah,
why he did that.
It's funny because I know you mentioned this to us, and doing my 2 minutes of research, I saw online we had a quote saying that apparently there's enough footage for like a 5 hour cut. Probably not entirely true, but I guess confirming the fact that there's a lot more footage he cut out to get under that stupid under 2 hour time limit. For really no reason. I mean,
The
again, it
the
doesn't take 3 hours, but I don't
the
know.
runtime wasn't even mandated by the studio. Like
It's
no
his
one's
mandate.
yeah no yeah his own personal one. No one said like the Justice League where it had to be had to be under 2 hours and whatnot. He just did it because he says he likes his movies under 2 hours, and that's not like you have to be serviceable to the story. You can't just be like, all right, I want under 2 hours. I don't care what we cut out. Then nothing makes sense, and then everything suffers from it. And that's what we have this mess of a movie on our hands.
And the worst part too is, aren't they like trying to say he's trying to give another MonsterVerse movie
Oh God,
because
I hope not. So one
Apparently
thing
he's like
that
a favorite.
I don't know if this bothered you guys, but I did not think the fight scenes were that well done, and that's because the camera would move in such unnatural and such fast ways that it feels like you're just watching a giant cartoon. And essentially we are, it's all CGI. But when you have the monsters also moving so fast and so unrealistically, like in the other Godzilla movies, or at least the other two American ones, Godzilla moved relatively slow. He never was super fast. And now he's jumping around and he's running super fast and the camera's doing these barrel rolls and spins. It's nauseating and it's a giant cartoon and it ruins any kind of realism you're trying to go for if you're trying to shoot these monsters and show scale and whatnot. It completely ruins it.
And that's the thing. Like that was like the main criticism of King of the Monsters, where people were saying they kept cutting away. But like now looking back, especially even on the 2014 one, while it has its problems, I'm not praising the 2014 one, but I will say at least in that and King of the Monsters, the reason of the cutting away or they're showing the human level is like you're saying, you can get that scale. Like when Godzilla falls next to a group of people, you actually feel like a 400-foot monster just fell. But when it's just the two monsters in a neon lit city with no scale, it just like it felt like a cartoon. But like,
It looks
but
like Rampage.
yeah, we're only missing the Rock. What a shame. But but that was like the one thing I actually appreciated about the other ones. Like especially now with the CGI, you can actually make it look like the monsters like they it looks more realistic. Especially like in the 2014 one, like while the ending fight had clearly was too dark and they kept cutting away too much. I did appreciate the Golden Gate Bridge scene, like where he comes up out of the water. You see, like from the bus and the bridge point of view, like him standing next to it. Like that's cool. But like when it's just like the cartoonish, like oh they're fighting because we just got to get the two monsters on screen. It's like, uh,
Also, like I guess to piggyback off to like the fact that King Kong has an axe kind of hurts that too, because I know that's part of the problem with the movie. Like the premise doesn't make sense. King Kong's not really a match for Godzilla, so they give him an axe to I guess help him, but like it also takes away from that realism. Like this giant, almost 400 foot tall monkey's carrying like an axe. It's like, all right, come on. I think it takes away a bit from the realism, the movies are trying to establish. Like, what if this was real, At least the two Godzilla movies kind of had.
Yeah, this movie
well,
just is
yeah,
not grounded in any reality.
yeah.
And if you watch this movie or if you watch the 2014 one and this movie back to back, you'd be like, what did I miss in between? Because they're completely different in every way. Like the
Feels like two
techno.
different universes.
And the
Yeah.
big and the biggest thing that they completely messed up in this one that the other movies at least took time to develop, and they actually developed it in a cool way, was the Hollow Earth theory. And they developed it where it's like an underground tunnel system in the earth that they can move in quicker. This just was like
There's another
screw that.
vortex or something.
Yeah, like it's basically another planet inside Earth. They go through a portal using these like Tron mobiles that somehow they got in like 5 years. Like in King of the Monsters, they literally were flying like giant jets. I mean they're it's still relative, military grade, whatever. But this, it was like, yeah, throw all that out. Let's get it under 2 minutes, like 2 hours. We gotta let's jump up 50 years in technology.
Yeah, like it wasn't even just the fact that all the gravity nonsense they were talking about. Like it was like flying basically, like a hovercraft that you see in the future movies or sci-fi movies. Just again, not really grounded in reality that the other movies kind of established.
It's like you think this movie's in the MCU with like the amount of technology craziness there is.
I mean, essentially, I mean, all the big nonsense.
Almost like Star Trek level at points.
Well, yeah, it does. It does look like a hovercraft or the vehicles they use in Star Trek.
Yeah, like when they detach from the ship. But that was like I appreciated that, like especially like the like one of my favorite scenes in all the movies was when Godzilla showed up in Boston in King of the Monsters, and like when he's walking up, and you see like from the Navy's point of view, and he like steps into the water, and you hear the doom, and like you can see like the screen shaking a bit, like that's cool, like you appreciate that about the monsters. But like this, it was just like it was just a cartoon. Let's give them an axe. They're ancient. Also, another thing too, like in the trailer, they were like, "Oh, there's an ancient rivalry." They completely threw that out of this movie. They did not elaborate on that at all.
Well, you see, that was in the 5 hour cut of Adam Wingard's movie, but he's a weirdo and wants to have it under 2 hours. So
So like, didn't they mention like it really wasn't a rivalry because like Godzilla's
they
species
killed
like
all of
almost
them.
yeah. Like, can you really call that a rivalry? One side genocides the other.
Yeah, basically, like in the backlore, like Godzilla drove his species to stay on Skull Island. It was just a complete massacre.
Epic rivalry. Yeah. No, it's really an epic rivalry, guys. We swear. Even it was like the Jets and Patriots.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, should we move to the human plot
We have to.
devices?
Oh god. Yeah, I guess.
These are dangerous times.
Do you want to start with the Apex then?
It's like I think in my head I have a lot to say, but I really don't because they're all so one note, these people. Like the main guy, his name is Nathan.
I can't remember his name.
His brother died in the Hollow Earth. And that's really it. He goes along for the ride, he's just there.
Well, they showed you the picture, Colin.
Yeah.
You're supposed to feel
To-
sad.
But he's just kind of
And
there.
then they completely like glossed over it.
Because at least
Yeah.
in the other ones, you could say that with the human characters, they tried to take their time. It seemed like there was an attempt to make the characters good. Whether they were good or not remains, there's a lot to be desired. But there was an attempt. They tried to establish a lot with the characters, have their backstories, why they're doing what they're doing. Both of the previous Godzilla movies and the Monsterverse tried to do that. But this movie just like, that's out the window. Let's just get everyone as quickly as possible. No time for you caring about these characters. Let's get them on a boat and let's try to just deliver plot lines and have them fight Godzilla.
Because that's one thing too, where I know this isn't, I guess, unique to Godzilla, where they have like a huge cast of characters they had to introduce every movie, but like they really didn't have to do that for this movie. Like I know they had to introduce new characters, like I guess Team Kong, quote unquote, but for like the Godzilla characters, they didn't really need to introduce new guys. I mean, they had Mark, I guess they had his daughter or whatever, but they had like the other scientists that could have followed more. But no, they want you to follow this weird conspiracy theorist who hangs around kids.
And like whispers the whole time. There were times I couldn't understand him. He was like whispering everything.
was
Like there's
whispering?
no
Who was?
The conspiracy theory guy. I forget his name.
Oh, Bernie?
Yeah, he kept like whispering everything.
Well, he was whispering because he doesn't want Big Brother to hear him from his podcast.
podcast with like 10 views, like us.
That's true. But yeah, oh god, he was just. I guess we should talk about with the characters. There's Team Godzilla and Team Kong, and Team Godzilla's plotline, even though they're both not good, the Team Godzilla's plotline is the worst because not only does Godzilla not interact with them or even know that they're out there trying to clear his name and whatnot, but they are literally irrelevant until the last 10 minutes of the movie. They are completely irrelevant.
Like I know they're there to show the stuff that Apex is doing to the audience, but like besides that, there's really no purpose. Like they really accomplished nothing. It's just to show the audience what Apex is doing, which I guess we'll get into that later. But like it's just a waste of time. Like there's no reason that
Hold on. They didn't do
idiots.
anything. Okay. All right. Craig, are you forgetting when they poured that flask on that, military grade computer and slowed Mechagodzilla down long enough for Godzilla and Kong to win?
No,
Okay.
I'll go. No, we have to go back even further, where the fat kid's like, "Oh, let me hack it," and then he's like typing at a keyboard, not doing anything. He's like, "Why can't you hack it?" Oh, I did like a class of HTML. I'm like, HTML is not. It's not even programming.
Let's go back even further, and that the reason why they're in the Hollow Earth, even though the Walter Simmons guy sent his daughter on a suicide mission, that once they get that energy, they download it and send it to them. Like, how does that work? If they just guessed correctly, could they accidentally like recreated the energy signature? Like, how does that work?
I also another thing
Please
with
download some
Apex,
electricity, bro.
also with Apex, another thing I didn't get how it worked. They were like they like had their computers hooked up to King Ghidorah's skull. I didn't get that. And then they had the guy with like the
Yeah.
like the
Hey,
VR headset like sitting on the skull.
he's not some guy. He's Dr. Serizawa's son, and I only knew
Yeah,
that because there was one throwaway line about him that them saying his last name.
yeah. That with the
Actually,
humans. I don't know why they kept like throwing all these family connections when they literally Walter Simmons sent his daughter to die in the Hollow Earth. Mark Russell is not even in the movie. And then the guy's brother it was mentioned and shown in that picture, and then they just forget about that. I was like, why are they trying to make all these family connections? It is
it's
so
about
irrelevant.
family. That's why it's so powerful.
Like
Well,
realistically,
turns out Vin Diesel is an executive producer.
realistically, Ren Serizawa should have been the villain. Like if because then you could be like, oh, uh, Doctor Serizawa, he spent all his time chasing after Godzilla, maybe a little too much time. And now he has a bitter son who runs Apex to exterminate Godzilla. That would make sense.
Yeah, and a more interesting character dynamic and
Yeah,
stuff.
and then like Mark Russell, Kyle Chandler should have been the star of the movie again. Maybe him and the Nathan guy if you work on him better. Because then I think Mark had like some senior position in Monarch in this movie, and they completely like just get rid of that, and all the development from from King of the Monsters is gone because now he hates Godzilla again after one
Like,
attack.
And also, too, why wouldn't you, if the podcast guy Bernie has all this information, why wouldn't she bring him to her father, who actually can do something in a company that studies the monsters?
Well, he didn't.
But no,
He doesn't trust podcasts. I think there was a line. He's like, "That's filling your head with garbage." He said.
but like I don't understand. Like you have all the high tech equipment on Earth. You like it's your job to study these creatures, and this nut knows more than you apparently. Like I don't understand that. Like it makes you look like incompetent.
This basement dwelling loser knows more than you,
Yeah, who likes to hang around children.
and like uses bleach on everything.
It's just nonsense. Yeah, but like the Ren Zero, that was disappointing. Yeah, like you're saying before, like, I don't understand how the Ghidorah skull worked. I mean, they weren't using his brain; they hooked up to the skull, and I guess the skull could communicate or something with the other skull.
The actress who played Dr. Chen in King of the Monsters did have scenes, but again, they were all cut out because our neighborhood weirdo Adam Wingard has wanted to cut it down to 2 hours.
he likes to cut his movies like his goatee, Colin. Right? He's got a
Yeah,
style.
nice and short.
And
Yeah.
like some of the scenes, like with Apex, it felt like they were trying. Like I honestly, I don't think what they were doing was honestly that bad. Like trying to build a Titan deterrent. I mean, is it really that bad of an idea? Like I can imagine people would actually try to make something like that. I mean, they already did in King of the Monsters. They had the oxygen destroyer. Is building like a mech really? I mean, I guess technology wise, it's far fetched, but like, is them trying to build a deterrent really that far fetched and that evil? I don't think so, but
Yeah, not
Also, too,
realistically,
like,
not really.
did you really need Ghidorah's skull to like develop a giant robotic titan? Couldn't you have just built that yourself and then had human controls for it? Why do you do this weird sci-fi route of having a guy with a VR set on a titan skull? You could have easily just done what they've done in the other Godzilla movies and have humans inside Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, that makes too much sense.
And then, like, what you could have done is you have Mechagodzilla designed like the original ones, or you're controlling from like a database, whatever. Like, if you didn't put Ren in Mechagodzilla at the end where he tries to kill Godzilla, like it then becomes like a personal connection. Like he's in there actually fighting him. But no, we gotta do this weird sci-fi thing that makes no sense. And
and
then
then Ghidorah takes over.
and yeah, the best is Ren has like two lines of dialogue, and then he finally gets his moment with Mechagodzilla, and then just gets electrocuted to death.
Yeah, this stranger shows up, says like two words, and I guess and dies. It's just a jumbled mess. This movie.
It was like they had all these characters just to kill off, just to push to the final moment of Godzilla and Kong squaring off. Which that I guess we could talk segue to that, which was their fight was so unnecessary and made no sense why they were fighting.
Who?
Godzilla and Kong,
Oh yeah.
like that well, before we get to that, the scene before when Godzilla just burns a hole into the Hollow Earth,
Yeah,
which
that
made
made.
no sense.
Yeah, I don't know why he did that.
See,
And
that would have made sense if they had kept Hollow Earth as it was. It's a tunnel system where if he just if it was he burned deep into the earth through a tunnel, that makes sense. But they established it like there was like a vortex you got to go through. So I don't know how he burned through that vortex and then it connects.
I mean, I don't get why he even did it. I mean, for some reason, Godzilla just like stands somewhere in Hong Kong and just, oh, okay, let me just go burn a hole to the center of the earth. Like, why would you do that?
Well, you see, Craig, we needed a way for humans in Kong to get back to wherever. Were they Hong Kong or Beijing?
It was Hong Kong, but
Hong
again,
Kong.
it's like the Spider-Man where they had the checklist. You know, we gotta have Godzilla and Kong fight at the end of the movie, and then they team up at the end. Blah blah blah.
That was another thing too of like Godzilla was responding to that orca machine the orca machine they were using with Mechagodzilla. So they were pinging that in Florida. So Godzilla showing up there makes sense. But him going into like the Tasmanian Sea out of his way to fight Kong when they aren't using the orca machine, they're avoiding Godzilla's path. Like, why is he going for Kong when they aren't making any noise or anything to get his attention? Because they showed us they had like an underground tunnel that connected Florida to China somehow. I like they brought the machine and everything to Hong Kong. So why would Godzilla go from Florida to Tasmania to the Tasmanian Sea, then up to Hong Kong? Wouldn't he just go from Florida to Hong Kong if he's following Mechagodzilla? But
Probably had some throwaway lines that I can't be bothered to remember. They
Yeah.
kept saying like it'd be a death sentence for him, which I mean, it really, I mean, obviously it was because Kong can't fight in the ocean.
Yeah, Godzilla's about to
also,
drown him.
well, that
It,
also
yeah.
too that was the thing that bothered me was when they said like, "Oh, shoot the depth charges." Well, if that incapacitated Godzilla, who's aquatic, wouldn't that have knocked Kong out and he would have just drowned? How did he get out of that? And Godzilla didn't.
I don't know. Just dumb. It's all dumb.
And never like a good kind of dumb, like just more of like a why bother kind of dumb.
Yeah, because like I said earlier, at least the other two movies, there was an attempt. They tried to, do something with the human characters. They tried. They showed effort. It didn't work out too well, but they still tried. This movie didn't care at all. They didn't try. Clearly, they didn't try, and that's what makes you just not really care about it. They clearly don't care anymore. And I don't even mind like the monster fights. Like if the monster fights were better or there was more of that. But the monster fights aren't really that good in this movie. I'd prefer the monster fights in the 2014 and King of the Monsters over this, for the reasons I mentioned earlier.
Well, plus again, there's not even that many of them either. I mean, it's the first Godzilla vs Kong fight, and then the second one, then they fight Mechagodzilla. I mean, you- not
Which
much.
that also too like that Mechagodzilla like was completely wasted. But also too like it really wasn't even like they could have even spent more time like showing Godzilla and Kong working together. It was like they do the one wrestling move, they pull him through the building, and then Mechagodzilla just beats them up again. Well, he just beats up Godzilla because Kong then gets the axe. It wasn't really much of a team up. It was like a minute long, and then Godzilla powers up the axe and they kill him.
Yeah, they really just wasted such a possibly good villain monster. Because like Ghidorah in the other one was so great. They established how much of a threat he is and how powerful he is. And this one, oh yeah, this robotic monster shows up for 5 minutes and gets destroyed by a giant
And that was
monkey with an axe.
that was also another thing that bothered me too. Of like, why? How did Team Kong know that Mechagodzilla was bad, or to tell Kong to help him save Godzilla when Godzilla just caved Kong's chest and then killed him because he had to get revived? Like they, how did they know that Kong should help Godzilla? Like they
I'm
didn't
sure
establish.
there's a dumb line. I'm sure.
No, I don't think there was any dialogue on Kong's side because they immediately shot up from Hollow Earth, and then Godzilla and Kong fight. Godzilla kills him, and then Godzilla just starts getting beaten up by Mechagodzilla, and then they go tell Kong to revive that like they tell the girl to when they revive Kong to like tell him to go help Godzilla, but there was no communication from Team Godzilla or Kong to be like, hey, this guy's the real villain. We got to work together. It was just like, oh, Godzilla's getting beaten up. All right, tell Kong.
I think they there definitely was a line where they realized maybe Godzilla was going after, like, the only reason why Godzilla was destroying because he was trying to find the robot or something. I don't know. I'm sure there's some dumb line. These kind of movies always try to cover themselves with a dumb line, like one throwaway line.
Yeah, probably. I can't be bothered to remember it. It probably wasn't important.
Uh,
Any other
just really,
negatives, or should we
Oh,
go
because I
to?
want to say there was a scene before.
Oh, by all means.
Because again, we were saying like how Apex they made them feel like comically evil, even though I don't really feel like they had a reason to be. But, like, remember when the our three Stooges from the team Godzilla stumble into the Apex base, and they're in that testing area where they release the skull crawlers, and like Mechagodzilla kills one of the skull crawlers. It's supposed to be like, oh my god, it's evil, but it's like it's just a skull crawler, which were already evil in the other movie. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know, is
really.
is that really that bad of a thing that he or I guess killing animals needlessly, but I don't know.
yeah.
It
And
doesn't seem all that evil to me.
how
I
did
was
Madison know it was a skull crawler? She's like, it's a
Patriot
skull crawler
podcast.
egg. Like, I'm pretty sure only the people from the Kong Skull Island, like that expedition, know about those things, and maybe Monarch. Like, I don't know. I just feel like how would she know what that is by name?
also. How could we forget the great dialogue in that scene? Oh, that's Robo Godzilla. No, that's Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Did you clap?
No, I didn't. My eyes rolled
I
back so
I, I
far
made I
in my
made sure to
head.
watch the movie with my like soundtrack, the audience soundtrack, so I knew when. But
Well, of course. I
also,
mean,
well, just to piggyback off what you said about like them being cartoonish, like especially like Walter Simmons lines felt very like cartoonish, like where he's like to show them that man is apex, and like like that's where he like looks at the camera and then like rubs his evil mustache.
I think he's like also like holding a glass of whiskey or something. He's, like,
Yeah,
let's
he's like
make him.
monologuing.
Yeah, let's make him more evil.
when I was a boy.
Oh, Mecha Godzilla levels are 50%. Like, he said something dumb like that. These are dangerous times.
Just not the best.
Any more negative reactions, thoughts?
Mm.
It's not as good as people like to make it out to be. I think,
Also, I was just gonna say they the obviously we all agree the plot armor Kong got
Uh,
was just
I don't know about plot armor. 'Cause
I
he
guess they
got.
kind of get.
I would
I
say
mean,
he
with the
felt more like some kind of power fantasy where they try to make him like so cool, and I don't know. I didn't get the vibes of plot
no,
armor.
actually, no, I don't. I shouldn't say plot armor, but like obviously they had to power him up to fight Godzilla with the axe. That just was ridiculous.
Well,
But
yeah,
you
he's
already
just
touched on that.
a giant hairy ape.
I guess that's just more of like the Kong fans who are like are so delusional that like think in a straight up fight that Godzilla and Kong would actually be a fair fight, especially with how they've established Godzilla in all these movies that he really is a heavyweight. Like not only does he have size on Kong, he has durability, strength, and speed, and he's also not dumb.
I
Like
would say speed he has on him, but
well, in the I well his speed I should say is he can move. He's not the guy in the costume where he's just like bumbling. You know what I mean? Like one step at a time.
yeah.
Because I
I was
mean
gonna say because
he did charge Ghidorah at the end. Like he could move for the most part. He wasn't ridiculous. His speed was relative to his size and like how he moved. But that was just something coming into this movie. It was like people actually thought Kong had a legit chance, and I was like, come on. Godzilla literally fell from the atmosphere, fought Ghidorah one on one, beat him in the water, was tossing him around like. Ghidorah would wipe the floor with Kong. But
Not if
go
he
ahead,
has an
Craig.
axe on him.
Well, I was gonna say there was like I think part of the problem with the movie where I don't really feel like it could justify the premise of Godzilla versus Kong. I mean, most people already know Godzilla's gonna win. Kong doesn't stand a chance. That's why they kind of have to give him the stupid axe. And again, it's part of the movie where it's like they had to hit this checklist and actually make a movie. When in reality, I don't think you really need them to fight. I mean, you can have just multiple monsters kind of in the same movie or the same universe.
Yeah, because everyone knew that it's gonna be a team up movie at the end. Like
Well, yeah, that
even
too.
even Stevie Wonder could see it coming, and he knows nothing about Godzilla.
Well, of course.
You
Who knows
guys,
as much as Chris Stuckman?
you guys didn't get the joke. That does matter. I guess let's go
Uh,
into positives. What very little there are.
I guess
uh,
this really isn't a positive, I'll say, but they had to focus on King Kong probably more because this is a second movie, well, it's Godzilla's third. Not going to say it's a positive, but I understand why they did that.
Well, I think they also did it because Kong is can be more emotive than Godzilla. I mean, like
Yeah.
they he literally knows sign language now, which I guess is a cool concept. Like,
well, they also established Godzilla as like a force of nature where he just keeps balance to the earth. So he's not there's not like a personal connection to him.
yeah. Some positives.
That's about all I
Positives.
had.
The only positive I would say is like I mean the Godzilla scenes I obviously enjoyed the especially the few destruction scenes. Like I thought it was cool. Like when he showed up in Florida, and he's like going through, like he's swimming through, and like you see his dorsal fins, and like the close up of him, his eyes were glowing. They could have showed more of his destruction scenes. Like they were fine for what they were. And then also too, when he shows up in Hong Kong and just unnecessarily plowed through the
Oh
bridge.
yeah, and like you see a car fall on someone.
Yeah, Godzilla scenes obviously were good, but that was like about it.
I really don't know if I can think of any positives because, for one, I just do not like Adam Director or Adam Wingard as a director. I don't think he did a good job with this. As we said multiple times and made fun of him for it, it felt like he did a disservice to the story he's trying to tell by purposely keeping it under 2 hours for whatever dumb reason. The movie suffered from it undeniably. It's like he sabotaged his own movie, and I don't know if I can think of any positives.
Well, I just want to say, like, apparently that director doesn't have the best track record because
Oh, he
the only
doesn't.
the only other thing I heard about he did was the a Death Note thing on Netflix, and I heard that was awful. So he's 0 for 2 right now, at least from what I know
Well,
about him.
I also think like too at the time,
Oh,
like it,
Craig, he also did one of those new Blair Witch movies, which weren't good.
Oh, okay, so 0 for 3 then, even better.
I, like because I read somewhere like one of his quotes. He said like he was really eager to do this movie, because him and a friend, would go back and forth on who would win in a fight between Godzilla and Kong, and obviously he was Team Godzilla. So when he said like he really like he was coming to this like no, there's going to be a definitive winner and everything like it honestly like when I read that quote, it seemed like the movie was literally just getting to that point just so he could just to see Godzilla win, and I was like, it kind of makes sense, like reading that and then watching the movie. But I was like, you could have just made a simple animated film and sent that to your friend. You don't have to ruin a franchise to prove your point.
Well, I wouldn't say he ruined the franchise, but he definitely with his film he left it in such a weird spot. You know,
I would say he like he definitely
I guess it wasn't the Last Jedi that really
yeah.
tanked the
All right,
franchise.
I'll rephrase it. You definitely don't have to disrupt or roadblock the direction of a franchise to prove a point.
I think that if he comes back to the MonsterVerse, I have no interest watching it. If especially if he is involved in it somehow, I just think he did such a bad job with it. It really like he seems like like he seems so fake in his interviews. Like I saw that same thing where he's like, "Oh, I want to sell this long time thing," but then he goes out of his way to do such a disservice to a story. Like as a director, like that's the worst thing you can do. At least Gareth Edwards and Michael Dougherty, they tried. They put a lot of effort into the monsters and stuff. They did a good job with that, but he didn't. He didn't really do anything well in this movie. He kind of sidelined Godzilla for a good majority of it, shoehorned in Mechagodzilla, intentionally cut the movie down to 2 hours to for whatever weird, he's a weirdo, and he did such a bad job. I have no interest in seeing another movie by Mr. Wingard. No thanks, no positives.
I mean, I can't say I
Yeah.
disagree either.
No, I agree with you.
Because that's why I find most disturbing. Like, going forward, we don't know if Godzilla's going to be back for sure, but
But
at
he's
least
gonna
in a
be in that
movie,
that app, yeah, Apple thing.
That
but for another
series, yeah.
movie, but for
Yeah,
I guess we could talk about that after. But for at least another movie, like we don't know what's going to happen, and this guy might be attached to the next Godzilla movie, which I do not
I
want to
hope he
see.
is not. I would
Yeah.
bring Gareth Edwards back or Michael Dougherty back.
I
I
mean,
would take anyone over this
even
guy.
the Kong Skull Island guy.
Yeah. At least those three. I think it's like Jordan Vogue Roberts. Those
Yeah.
three know how to treat their monsters, at least try to tell a competent story. They know how to do that. And I don't know about Jordan Vogue Roberts' track record with films, but I know Gareth Edwards, he did a successful monster movie called Monsters, and he did Rogue One. And Michael Dougherty, he did Trick or Treat and Krampus, and he wrote some of the X Men movies. So they know how to tell a competent story. They know how to they feel like actual directors. I don't know what I don't even know what Adam Wingard. It just seems like he's a guy who showed up on set. I don't like his movies. I don't like his style. I hope he doesn't come back to the MonsterVerse. And I have nothing against the guy. I just don't like his movies,
You
especially
almost wonder,
this.
like, if the reason why he gets hired is not so much his obviously not a skill, it's the fact that probably he says yes to the corporate executives, like anything they want, he's like, okay, I'll do whatever you want. I mean,
I don't doubt
trying to
it,
speculate as
honestly.
to why he would get hired, because it can't be for his talent.
Yeah. Oh, that was another thing that bothered me too. Like he did right in the beginning was like Godzilla just. Did he kill the other Titans or did he just beat them into submission?
Oh, it just says defeated, I think.
Because I was like, you know, why would you do that? It just completely undermined King of the Monsters. That Godzilla he's the true alpha at the end. They all submitted to him, and the first 30 seconds he just off screen he just beats them all down. Like they already submitted to him. Like why do you undermine the last movie? But he
Yeah.
just I have no yeah. If that guy's coming back, oh god.
Bring back Doherty and maybe pair him up with a more competent screenwriter than Zach Shields, who co-wrote it with Doherty, or at least King of the Monsters. Bring him back, or bring back Gareth Edwards. Don't bring back this guy. You're gonna get, you know what you're gonna get, another under 2 hour movie with a bunch of nonsense in it that it feels so disjointed.
Unfortunately, probably most of the people that watch this again aren't like true Godzilla fans, so they're like, "Oh, this was good." And I'll be like, "Okay."
Yeah,
Oh, I thought of one more negative.
go for it.
The soundtrack, I love the soundtrack in Godzilla King of the Monsters. This one
Oh yeah.
was just boring,
Did
boring movie nonsense.
Did you hear what Adam Winger said? He said he did that deliberately because he said it, if to like summarize his words, it felt dishonorable to using the Japanese themes in an American movie or whatever. It's like, no, you stupid idiot. It's part of the character. You can't have the character without the music or vice versa. It goes hand in hand, you know.
Sounds like a
It's
really
Yeah.
dumb
keep him
Like
justification
away.
for
He
saying.
he gets me upset. Keep him away.
It sounds like a
like
dumb
uh,
justification for we didn't want to purchase the licensing. That's
like
really what it sounds like.
like for example, like when King of the Monsters, two of the best scenes, and a big reason was because of the music in it. When Godzilla showed up in the Arctic and he emerges out of the ice with his original theme, And when he shows up in Boston, and he's walking in with the military, the lightning, he's roaring, he's glowing, and then they have his original theme with him. I was like, that was epic. I like that. I loved, and you want the original theme with it. You expect that with him, but no, we have to put when Godzilla showed up in the sea. th- it was like it was basically the original theme with a little twist on it. I was like, you really just couldn't do that.
He's a
The movie's
weirdo.
so short. I mean, why pay for the licensing? The movie's so short.
Is
Not
he
gonna get
trying to
much
be?
use out
Is
of
he
it.
trying to be like an edge lord in the MonsterVerse? A wannabe?
I wouldn't say he's an edgelord. I think he's
No,
just
no,
like
I'm
a.
saying. No, no, I'm saying, is he a wannabe edgelord? Like he's like, oh, I'm putting my own little twist on it.
No, I think he's just like
You
full of
just ruined the
himself.
movie.
I think he probably thinks that he's like some hollow director, even though he's mostly made bad movies in his historic career. He's doing an untitled Face Off sequel right now and says he's directing and writing it. So,
A
God help that.
face-off sequel?
God help that movie.
How are you doing a sequel to such a one-note story?
I don't
Everything's
know.
getting rebooted. I guess now. I guess they're rebooting Face Off.
Oh my god, that is such a one-note story. You
So
just
good,
swap.
maybe they'll occupy him for a couple years, let him ruin that, and bring in somebody else for the MonsterVerse. Like I said, I would
No.
personally like if Doherty came back, because at least he had the passion, and it seemed like he put in a lot of care into the monsters, and maybe a little bit too much attention was put towards them instead of the script. But at least he isn't full of himself, and he knows how to make the monsters well and work and mingle amongst each other. Bring him back, not Wingard.
He
Well,
made
he's
he
got
made
talents. I mean,
he
I
made
like Trick or Treating Krampus and King of the Monsters.
he
That much
made
better track
He made
record.
Mothra likable. I was impressed when I actually liked Mothra, her design. I actually was sad when she died. I was like that. She was one of those she was one of the least likable characters, but he somehow made her likable. He did a great job on Rodan. Ghidorah and Godzilla were phenomenal. He actually, like you said, he cared. He actually was a Godzilla fan, not this Billy goated freak who just was like, oh, I'm gonna do my own thing.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, boys?
Not really.
Don't.
We've talked about this too much. Let's put this to bed forever.
Yeah.
Don't come back, Adam Wingard. You're not welcome. That's all I have to say.
And we have the authority to stop them.
Yeah, go ruin Face Off or do something else. I don't know. Just stay away from monsters.
Go work for Disney.
Go work for oh wait, isn't 20th Century Fox? They're owned by Disney. Go make like one of those bad X-Men movies. They're very corporate-y, those movies.
Go work with Bryan Singer.
Oh,
God.
I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. Not even someone like Wingard. All right, I guess that's our episode. I've been Colin.
I've been Craig.
I've been Peter 4.
All right. Until next time, then.